Hello, this is Greg Sierra again, and just checking in for recording. This is part two of the pension lecture. So last time we were talking about, from an accounting perspective, what is the pension asset or liability? And this slide is just discussing the GAAP measure of the pension asset or liability. We're going to start with the obligation side. So the pension obligation is measured by an actuary. Actuaries are people that are trained highly in statistics. So, for example, if you get a car insurance quote, you give them your name and some information, and they may look up your credit report, how old you are, all this type of information. They feed it into a model, and you get a quote right back. The actuaries, uh, they are the ones that build those models. So they determine all these statistical factors based on whether you got a ticket, your age, maybe whether you're married, blah, blah, blah. And they do the same thing for pension. So what they figure out is, all right, you have an employee. What's the chance that employee is going to be with you to what age? What's the chance that their salary is going to go up to this amount? Then once they retire, how long are they going to live and how much are they going to get? So what they do is um, they go out here to, there's all these pension payments. They estimate what these payments are going to be for each and every employee that you have in a corporation. And then this is a deferred annuity. The present value of that deferred annuity will equal the obligation. Now, if you're doing estimates, sometimes it's easier to start with basic assumptions and then build them up. So that's what we're seeing in the slide. Our accounting is going to follow the what actuaries do in their profession. So what actuaries start with is this vested benefit obligation. And this is for vested employees. What does it mean to be vested? No more service required for current benefit. So when I left the Federal Reserve and came to SIUE, I was vested. I worked there for 7 years, and they gave me an estimate that if I retired at whatever it was, 60 years, I would be entitled to $200 a month, more or less. So I didn't have to work anymore to be entitled to that benefit. Now, if I kept working, I could get more benefit, but what I had earned to date, I was vested in. Okay, so vested means the corporation is only including employees that are entitled to receive the benefits they've earned to date. And current salaries is current salaries, whatever their current salary is. So you can imagine up here, when they're trying to estimate these dollar amounts, that's kind of a difficult thing to estimate the future salary. So what it'll start with is just, let's say the salaries don't change. So this is the smallest amount. It's smaller than the other two we're about to talk about because it includes the smallest number of employees and assumes no growth in salaries. Now, this accumulated benefit obligation adds all the non-vested employees, but still is current salaries. But here's the change right there. It's non-vested employees. So the incremental amount that your textbook has, this little thing, this increase is due to adding more employees. The projected benefit obligation here is for vested, non-vested, but now the big change is we're going to add these future salaries. And in general, because of inflation, we think salaries grow. All right, so this incremental the amount here, this is due to the future salaries, and this amount here is due to including non-vested employees. Since the projected benefit obligation is all the employees and estimates of future salary, the FASB chooses this one. So now that we know the FASB is going to choose the projected benefit obligation, we still don't know if they're going to recognize the full amount or some partial amount. As a practical matter, definitely no. Try to get the little highlighter working, and well, it's not cooperating. Okay. All right. Well, forget it. So that wasn't not working out. No vested benefit obligation, accumulated benefit obligation, and projected benefit obligation. We will use the PBO, projected benefit obligation, for accounting. All right. These are actuarial terms, vested, accumulated, and projected. But we still, as accountants, we need to know them. Okay, so PBO is the measure of the obligation. It's the present value of all the estimated future payments to retirees that the corporation expects to make based upon the actuarial estimate. I just briefly mentioned the plan assets, but plan assets are things like stocks, bonds, real estate, and there's this other category called alternative investments. All right. The PBO is a measure of the obligation, and the fair value of the plan asset. So fair value of plan assets is the measure of the pension plan's assets. And when we talked earlier about the pension plan itself being a separate legal entity, they will have a measure of the obligation and a measure of the fair value of plan assets. These items are disclosed, but we're not going to bring these directly onto the balance sheet. Instead, the pension asset liability equals what's called the net funded status. We take the plan assets minus the projected benefit obligation, and the actuarial term is net funded status. The difference in this is net funded status here. This is just in words, the difference between the fair value of plan assets and the PBO. If it's overfunded, the plan assets are greater than the projected benefit obligation, and we will record a pension asset. So here's the answer to the question. What are we recording? If it's overfunded, it's a pension asset. If it's underfunded, the plan asset less than the PBO, then it's a pension liability. So this is how we get from the actuarial terms of overfunded and underfunded to overfunded is plan asset, underfunded is pension liability. And we're not recording all the plan assets or all the PBO as a liability. We're just recording the net amount. Excuse me. And sometimes you can have an asset and sometimes you can have a pension liability. Just what does this mean to be overfunded or underfunded? Stepping aside from corporate accounting and pension accounting for a second, think of planning your own retirement. What overfunded would mean is your retirement account is so large that you don't expect to use it all in retirement. That's what it means. If it's underfunded, it means you still need to contribute to your retirement plan to make sure that you can pay your retirement. So, underfunded isn't great on the one hand. On the other hand, it isn't necessarily a problem, a cash flow problem. It just means that you need to continue to make payments so that when people retire, the money's there. Okay? So overfunded is definitely stronger. So overfunded is strong. Underfunded would be a question mark. You'd have to see what's the ability of the corporation to pay the cash flows going forward. Okay. So I'm going to take a break here. So this is going to be part 3 of pension accounting. I'm going to take a break here so the videos don't get too outrageously long, and we'll come back and you can open up the next video and we'll go over pension expense.